G'day, everyone. John Hollenberg here. We're going to kick off. We are back for another monthly lunch and learn, and we are joined by these handsome, smiling faces. We've got Sam Horn. Sam heads up our creative here at 5 by 5. He's been with us for 12 years, over 15 years of experience. Doing this. We've also got the amazing Wade, who is our lead project manager here at 5 by 5 as well. He's got 10 plus years of experience doing this. And then me, I've got, almost 20 years of grey hair experience doing this as well. So between us, we all sound really old, don't we, boys? Huh? But
In
we
there.
we got some knowledge to share. So the idea here is just to have a bit of a chat. In terms of the registrations, we had a whole bunch of interesting questions in and around the topic of website design. So we're going to do our best just to unpack that. Well, here is the first question. How can I understand the costs behind different website designer quotes? And I'm on the front line from a sales perspective. I get asked this a lot when we go through our sort of sales and engagement process. They say how much, and then we obviously have a certain product and position in the market. There's many different ways to be right, and everything from going offshore and getting like a freelance $500 sort of website. You may get a good outcome, but in 20 years of doing that, it's very few and far between that I've seen that actually happen. Mainly sort of trails of destruction and just false starts and just inability to get outcomes there. Compared to where we sort of sit as an agency, where we bring lots of different unique skill sets together. Everything from SEO strategists, we've got project managers, we've got website designers doing the user interface, then we've got developers, and then we've got copywriters. So we're able to inject all these very specific elements into just getting an awesome outcome. Probably the other things to consider here are around the cost, and I am a firm believer that you try to do something once, you do it well. You don't have to do it again for a decent period of time, and you do generally get what you pay for in life. Another interesting sort of factor that has firmed up in the world of digital, especially website design development, is there's specialists where even e-commerce development is becoming very much a specialty topic or a specialty skill set now. What else, guys? What else goes into this? Do you feel? I'll throw this across to you, Wade. Your 10 years of doing this, you've seen everything. What else do you think sort of goes into answering this question?
Yeah, I think if we're looking at, say, like the types of designers mixed with the cost factor sort of components, just from experience in my time, what you're getting from an offshore one-man band sort of thing versus an
Mm.
agency or a larger firm again, you are just getting that extra value put in with the others because you're getting a team rather than just a solo person. You're getting
Yep.
the experience of that team as well.
Mhm.
Like John had sort of mentioned there, where we've got the copywriters, our SEO, ad teams, designers, developers, all of their experience comes together in one. So you're getting the mind of many rather than the mind of one. So it tends to be a little bit more expensive, but definitely worth the input for it, in my opinion.
Focusing on the talented individuals that are doing their part, instead of just,
Mm.
again, we said it 3 or 4 times, it's just that one man band that it's very difficult to be a professional in all things that come into this, right? So the SEO side of things, the design, the development, yeah.
Yeah, cool. I think the other big part of that is like redundancy as well, that there's no key person risk in that relationship.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so, a good sort of layered agency has redundancy built in that we're not going to fall off the face of the planet. And then this sort of leads into the next sort of question around what are the logistics involved in website design? Because, being speaking very openly and transparent, our solution started about 10K plus GST, and then upwards from there. Like, what makes the website uh, that expensive? Um, so, Sammy, do you want to just maybe talk about the
Yeah,
love
I
and the
think we've
care that
already,
goes into these?
yeah, well, this is just some of it, right? So, and I think we've already covered off on some of this in terms of the specialized team part.
Mm,
We've got professionals that are, dedicating themselves to, their craft, whether it's an SEO expert, developer who specializes in the coding,
yeah,
responsiveness, the designer and UI, the testing side, so making sure that, thorough testing's been done at various different stages of the project, various different tools and plugins, and sometimes like custom development based on the particulars for that specific project, because every project's
yeah,
different, right? We're trying to mold something for a particular service or a particular product. So
yeah.
it's going to differ. And so you want people that are going to know what they're doing to do this custom work where needed. What else do we have?
Well,
We
I've
had,
just brought up a project template on
yeah,
screen, Sam. So this is an example of what we call our small website, and the reason I'm showing this is to really illustrate the actual work that goes into this and each of the key steps. So we've got obviously the project management component that you're responsible for, Wade. We've got the design component that you're responsible for, Sam. Development, inputting content, launch and handover. And when you look at this, there's a bunch of hours that essentially go into that. And, I think from an affordability perspective, like that's still a very reasonable hourly rate here in Australia at 125 plus GST. So when you multiply out those numbers, like that's where the numbers land just for a good quality product, employing people that are experts in their craft. So the next one, how do I optimize my website to get more page views, to get people to reach out to me and to grow my blog readership? When we put together any sort of strategy for a client, it's usually founded on a performance-driven approach, as in the client needs leads and inquiries coming through. They want traffic through to their website. So then by putting together a document like this, essentially what this is a keyword research plan. It allows us to see what specific opportunities exist in Google for specific keywords. So we can see the keywords that people are searching on, the associated monthly volume for those keywords. And then based on that, that allows us to inform different pages that'll exist. So the general sort of philosophy there is one search phrase, one page. And really, like this is how the architecture is put together. So this is a sort of foundational piece here. How then that relates back to the actual optimization process. Wade, do you want to sort of talk to that a little bit more?
Yeah, so we've got when you're building a page or building a website in general, there's a lot of research that goes into it before actually kicking off things like design or development. And that'd be around like the SEO that we just saw there. But that would then also branch into all of the copy that's going on to that website. So whether it's the front end and the actual text that the user would be reading using the SEO key phrases, as well as the back end. So like the metadata that Google's reading and stuff like that. So there's a lot of optimization in terms of the wording that's used. And that'd be sort of like the SEO side of things. But
Yeah.
we would sort of branch into, in design at least, trying to convert users as well. So we're not just dumping a bunch of stuff willy-nilly on a page and praying for the best. You sort of want to really lead the horse to water and give them everything at as minimal clicks as possible and just in their face and nice and simple to digest.
Yeah.
Nice analogy, that one, Wade. Yeah. So again, it sort of comes down to every project's different, right? Some individuals, well, if it is an individual based on the project, might want to push a blog. Others might want to push a service section because that's, paramount to convert consumers from the service section, educate them around that. So sort of, it depends on each project and then, guiding the viewer and getting them there as smoothly as you can through the user journey.
Yeah, and I think like speaking specifically about a blog, like typically we'll include a blog just because it's just a structured way of being able to present content. And that's then where we can do, news releases or very sort of specific, more informative bits of content that are housed on a blog that are easily optimized, that then go and feed the rest of the content on the website. And it just works so well from an SEO perspective.
At the
So
bottom, like when we're dealing still with that scenario, John, like with the blog section on the independent posts, like those post internals, we are
yeah,
talking about these questions. Like at the base, the key conversion would be if you want to increase viewers of your blog and have that newsletter subscribe at the base of the post, because some
yeah,
individuals come through to direct posts, right? So there's those sorts of scenarios.
yeah, cool. And then all the social sharing components and all that sort of stuff. They're things that Google look at when scanning through the site. So yeah, there are a few of the considerations when trying to grow traffic. Use your blog. We then get into brand identity, and there's no one more qualified to talk about this than Sam. What is important when it comes to a good, solid brand identity online?
Well, obviously it's going to be a logo typography when you're dealing with like
Yeah.
font choices, which is, and all this stuff is set as a rule book when you've completed, a logo creation process. A designer will place together that rule book, and that rule book should include all these things. So obviously the logo, the rules around the typography, what fonts are you using, and we're using a camel case styling for heading and all caps style. Be consistent with those sorts of things. Colors. So don't probably, and sometimes you see this with marketing teams where they might get excited and go, okay, for a particular campaign, we're going to change the color. We're going to branch off from our usual 5x5 blue, and maybe we go down the route of a red. You definitely don't want to be doing that, because these sorts of elements such as color create that consistency with a brand that allows a viewer to understand what brand it is when the logo isn't visible, right? So, and sometimes I use this analogy where it's like, if I say like a color, or I'll inverse it. If I say Coke, you'll know what color comes with Coke, and that's because they're consistent with that, right? They don't go changing their colors. It's the red, and it's a key element to your branding, right? Iconography. So styling of iconography, maybe you use like quite a simplistic stroke style with your icons. Maybe it's illustrated style, but be consistent with that whenever you're using iconography, patterns and shapes, image tone, tone and voice within the content itself. So various different things. And really the number one thing to take away from this with building a strong brand identity is just to be consistent. Stick to the rules, don't change it. Trust a solid designer to put that together for you, and just stay true. And over time, it'll start to come into play where people recognize the brand.
Sam, I reckon if you were going to get a tattoo, a word tattooed on your body, it would be the word
John Hollenberg.
consistency. Consistency is key, like most things in life.
Hell
So
yeah.
I love that. Wade, anything profound to add there?
I think Sammy ticked all the boxes
Nailed
on that one.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, as an extension on that, should I have different versions of my logo for social media, print, and my website?
Well, with this question, I wasn't sure if it was like different versions of your logo, where if one of your logos had a picture of a cat and the other one had a picture of a dog. You definitely don't want to do that, because that's what I just said. You want to be consistent, right? So no, but there are instances where sometimes with your logo, the application or the real estate that the logo needs to go into. Let's just run a scenario. Facebook profile, right? Facebook profile is quite a small real estate. It's a small little square. If you've got like an elongated logo with wide kerning and it's text-based or script-based or whatever, us trying to sort of condense that down to a small real estate can then lead to like legibility issues with the logo itself.
Yeah.
Within that same logo that I just talked you through, maybe there was an icon, a piece that was created above the typography. What you could do is separate that out. And we've got that on screen, right? We've got our logo at the bottom there where it's the 5x5, but then we've got the icon only, where in those particular circumstances, that could be called on. And it just creates higher impact for that, the memory bank for the consumer to then, okay, I can't see the full logo, but I know that icon because I've seen it before in the past. So, yeah. So
Love
no
that.
is the answer. Yes, but no.
Yeah, cool. How do I maintain visual consistency while allowing for variety? So I'm just going to zoom in on this a little bit here. Maybe you just want to explain like what's a brand style guide or the rule book that we typically use, Sam, and then how off piste you can go with that thing.
Well, just come back out for me. The question,
Sure.
I think, what do we got here? Maintain visual consistency while allowing variety. So consistency is just staying true to that earlier stuff we talked about, the rule
Mm.
book, right? So fonts, don't change it. Color set, don't change it. And you can see
Yep.
with our brand below that John was zooming in on before, like we expanded our brand about 6 to 12 months ago, where we've got I think it's like I should know this, 5 colors off the top of my head for our existing brand. We don't change them, we stay true to them, but because of the amount we've now included, we've got a lot of versatility. We use all those colors, we stay true to the fonts, but what you do is with the application, you can change it. So what I mean by that is maybe you give the content a white background in one instance. Maybe you're giving another key element or a key marketing design, one of the gradient color backgrounds, another campaign you're running, color gradient, right? So you're staying true, but you've got this versatility coming into play through the application.
Yeah, cool. And you can actually see how that then translates like through to our slides and everything else that we do as well on the screen. So love that. It's almost like consistent variety, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. And then integrating your branding into every page of your website. So I'm just going to jump out here and show an example. When we go and design a site, there's essentially a bit of a rule book, isn't there?
Yeah. So the question was like, how do we stay true to the brand in a page of a website? It's like, well, that shouldn't be the way that the website was built. It should be built from the foundation up. The foundation should be set before any page is created or any element of a website is created, from the foundation wrapped around your brand. So again, what are your set fonts off the rule book? What are your set colors? So let's set all that out in a rule book. And we call this like the atomic design and development process, where it's like you've got your atoms, which are the most fundamental components of the build. So you set all that out, and then the page or any new page that's created a part of the website follows those brand rules, which means that, hey, it's automated, right? You don't need to try and make the page look like your brand. It's done for you. So
yeah, these are the building blocks. And then this is how then that translates to a nice finished polished design. So this is a mock-up of a client's real website. Hasn't been, well, this version here wasn't built, but this is just, this was presented to the client. Wade, do you want to talk about the just the prototyping and then how that all sort of translates through from a design perspective?
Yeah, when we go through and build out all of our websites, we use a prototyping platform called Figma, which essentially allows us to design a website in a way that's a little bit more futuristic. So instead of using just a PDF or a static JPEG that we send, you're just seeing just the visual. We actually get to go through and kind of do up some dummy animation and load in effects and, click things through so you can sort of get an idea of how things flow. And what we're seeing in front of us now is actually a version of that we've done for a client in the past. So at first glance, you'd easily mistake this for a finalized website.
Yeah.
And you get to see, the brand translating into that design based on the fundamental thing that we looked at before. And what you can see here as well is John's actually leaving feedback directly into the concept, which is leaps and bounds better than the old methods of trying to come up with screenshots and adding it to and stuff. So now Sam and his team can just see any points of feedback that may need attention just directly on the actual design itself.
Yeah.
What we've just opened up here as well is that design now translated into the finished product, so the actual developed website. There's probably about a year between this one we're looking at now versus the original design, but you can see we're still using all these same sort of elements, still got all that brand consistency as well. And you get a little bit more oomph in it when it's
Yeah.
in.
And this sort of probably leads into the next question is what are the best practices for creating a user-friendly website layout? There's a whole bunch of just general sort of accessibility conventions. Then you've got your SEO considerations, which are really important. And then that's, going back to one of our first points around that integrated approach from an agency perspective. I actually saw this yesterday it was a sales call that I did. Someone had said, I've got this amazing new site built. It looks fantastic. It looks great from a branding perspective, but I'm completely invisible in Google. And then it wasn't until we sort of went through it and didn't have all your hierarchy from your heading styles. It didn't have any of the on-site, meta titles, meta descriptions. There was no rhyme or reason in terms of how the actual services or the site architecture was put together. Looked great, but it just wasn't performing, and it was never a consideration. So now what this business needs to do is retrospectively go back and build all this stuff in, which is more work, essentially. Yeah. What else? Conversion. That's that line between getting a whole bunch of traffic through to a site, but then also getting someone to raise their hand and get in touch. Because that's ultimately what we want. We want the conversion. Like traffic for traffic's sake is just sort of vanity. And then same deal, branding for branding's sake, also vanity. We need to find the balance between the two. And then also mobile considerations as well. So we look at, our site still, mobile is a smallish percentage, 20-25% is what our analytics tell us. Whereas I look at, say, my wife's website, she has a day spa here at the Gold Coast, and her mobile usage is like 85% or something like that. It's crazy. So, yeah, there are other sort of considerations to keep in mind. Anything else to add there, boys?
Probably they work hand in hand, right, with that responsive stuff, the mobile side of things. The earlier points you see at the top in terms of the type sizing. So paragraphs and heading sizing aren't just ambiguous based on, hey, aesthetically, I think it just looks good. It's like, well, what's the industry standard to allow for responsiveness and cascading down to those mobile sizes? So when you're on a mobile phone, you're going to be able to read it. And then, accessibility on top of that, unique accessibility depending on the project again. So are we dealing with a consumer that is maybe a little bit more on the mature side of things, and legibility could be an issue. So it's making sure that you're across all that from the induction to the project so that the development and the design all wraps around the consumer.
All right. Purpose of a homepage. Wade, this seems like maybe a pretty straightforward question, but like, why do we have a homepage? What is a homepage doing?
Yeah, well, the homepage is essentially a landing page for I would probably go as high as like what 50 upwards percent of the traffic that you'll get is most likely going to be coming through to your homepage. So it needs to really be that, eye-catching sweet spot. The users are going to see it and be like, well, from this one page, I know who they are, what they do, where they do it, and how I can approach them to get it done. So that's sort of like the big thing with the homepage is it's a little bit of everything, but just enough to keep people interested and actually get them clicking through to those inner pages. So it's sort of like one of your biggest pages, apart from say service pages, really. So it's just it's an essential page. You want to try and get just a really clear outline of everything about you, just to spoon feed it through.
Yeah, and I think like if you look at our portfolio, regardless of industry or location or type of business, there's common elements that are weaved throughout those. So then, my take on that is I think someone should be able to like land on your site and literally at a glance know what sort of business you are. So that's the importance of your headline statement, and then what's the next logical step? What's the number one action that you want someone to take on this site? And there's lots of different creative ways of presenting that information and funneling people through. So, yeah, that would be my 2 cents on that. Getting more technical, how do we check sites' performance and metrics? Wade, this is your area of specialty.
Yeah, so in terms of like how often you should be checking your website's performance metrics, really comes down to what the site is, how large it is, how often you're posting content, or how often it's changing. So if you're a smaller website, you post maybe once a month, there's not a lot going on in it, then a monthly sort of check is probably all you're going to need. But if you're a larger site, you're posting quite often, or you're an e-com, or you're doing A/B testing where maybe you're looking at possibly changing some design elements, I'd probably be looking at the metrics pretty often.
Yeah.
And there's different metrics you can be looking at there as well. So, you could be looking at things like Google Analytics, or any of those sort of tracking software in terms of your traffic stuff. But you can also be looking at things like heat maps where you're actually reviewing how the users are using the website and maybe picking up on what needs to be changed from there. So that's probably the biggest point I would say.
Yeah, well, that's probably a good lead into the next question. It's just reducing bounce rate. So
Yeah, that's like your metrics are going to be one of your biggest key players when it comes to reducing your bounce rate. So seeing through things like Google Analytics, what pages are people leaving the website on, what's not getting an action. That'll give you an idea of the pages that need attention, and then using things like Hotjar will give you behavior of those websites, so you can see how far down a page a user goes, what they're clicking, what they're not really doing, and then that kind of gives you the evidence then on what needs to change. Is the page too long? Are my calls to action too low? Is the imagery not engaging enough? Is the text maybe too heavy or not styled for the user? That sort of thing. So it really gives you a bit more to go on. And then the last point I think we've got there, video and imagery assets, always a key thing. Like trying to keep your users interested and engaged is key. So tend to find anything with a video on it tends to get a bit more engagement.
Yeah, cool. Love all of that. And just with the awareness around, the data doesn't lie. So digging into the data, I can't manage what you're not measuring. So then a mobile responsive one, how do I ensure all features work seamlessly across all screens and devices? There's some cool tools there. One called Browser Stack. That's what we utilize pretty extensively. Chrome out of the box also has this feature. We don't have time to go into it today, but if you say jump on YouTube, put in like Chrome resize feature, it'll automatically do that on the fly. Really cool. So there's a whole bunch of awesome tools that are built into Chrome that probably not a lot of people realize. Other tools. What is there anything else you use in the mix? Why do they the main two?
They're probably the main two, yeah. Like I'm a sucker for always manually testing and seeing how it looks on my device. But yeah, things like Browser Stack and Chrome allow you to do it and mirror the devices, but nothing beats actually testing your real devices.
Yeah, there's always quirks through, Android OS and iOS, and get some interesting things sometimes crop up. So test, and more testing. That brings us up to the end. Sam, Wade, you are just two wonderful human beings. I appreciate you both. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate all your wisdom, knowledge, and know-how. So thanks again, everyone. Thanks for joining us. And we'll see you on the next one.